I used to think the office was my safe place. A dull, gray box of fluorescent lights, coffee breath, and endless spreadsheets, but still, a space where logic ruled. No drama, no lies, just deadlines and data. That was before her. Before everything fell apart. I met Emily on a Monday morning that already felt cursed. My boss had dumped a client presentation on me last minute, and my laptop decided to crash right before the meeting. She appeared at my cubicle like a burst of sunlight in the fog, offering me her spare charger and that easy smile people only seem to have in toothpaste commercials. She was new marketing department, sharp dresser, smart eyes. She talked fast, worked faster, and laughed like she didn't belong in a place where dreams went to die. Within a week, we were eating lunch together. Within a month, we were staying late, finishing reports side by side, and exchanging secrets under the hum of office lights. At first, it was innocent. Or maybe that's what I told myself. I'd been married for 7 years to Claire, a nurse who worked night shifts. Our schedules rarely overlapped. By the time I got home, she was asleep. When she woke up, I was gone. The silence between us had grown like mold, a slow, invisible, suffocating. So when Emily leaned in close one night, her perfume filling the air, and whispered, "You work too hard," I didn't move away. It started with coffee breaks, then drinks after work, then text messages that didn't sound like colleagues anymore. "You look good today. I miss talking to you. Wish you were here." I knew it was wrong. Every time her name flashed on my phone, guilt punched me in the chest. But it also made me feel alive, like I wasn't invisible anymore. Then came the night it crossed the line. We'd stayed late to prepare a campaign pitch. The office was empty except for us. Music playing softly from her phone, laughter echoing off the walls. She spilled coffee on her blouse, cursed, and I offered my jacket. 1 second she was thanking me, the next, she kissed me. It was like something inside me snapped, tears of loneliness, frustration, quiet resentment all flooding out at once. I didn't stop her. I didn't stop myself. That night became another, then another. A hidden rhythm of stolen moments and whispered promises. We were reckless. We thought we were clever, until the day my boss called me into his office. "Jason," he said, eyes heavy, "there's been talk about you and Emily." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What kind of talk?" He sighed. "HR got an anonymous complaint about inappropriate behavior. You know this kind of thing can get messy." I tried to play dumb, but the way he looked at me like he already knew told me it was too late. Emily denied everything. Of course. She was good at pretending. "He's just helping me with projects," she told them with that perfect smile. And somehow, they believed her, but the damage was done. Whispers started. Eyes followed me in hallways. Even Claire noticed the change when I got home, the stress, the paranoia. "What's going on with you lately?" she asked one night, standing in the doorway in her scrubs. "You've been distant, secretive." I wanted to confess. God, I did. But the words got stuck in my throat, so I lied. "It's just work." That lie became the seed of my downfall, because while I was busy covering my tracks, Emily was already planning her escape, and she made sure I'd take the fall for everything. The first time I realized Emily wasn't who I thought she was, it was already too late. A week after the HR meeting, she stopped replying to my texts. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. At first, I told myself she was scared, maybe lying low until the gossip died. But the truth, she had already moved on. She started spending time with Ryan, the regional manager, the kind of guy who treated interns like fan club members and loved hearing his own voice. I'd see her laughing in his office, the same laugh that used to be mine. When she walked past my desk, she didn't even look at me. And then, the rumors shifted. Now it wasn't Jason and Emily people whispered about, it was Emily and Ryan. She had rewritten the story, painting herself as the poor, ambitious girl I'd supposedly taken advantage of. And Ryan, he believed every word. One Friday afternoon, I got an email from HR again. Subject, formal review meeting Monday 10:00 a.m. No explanation. Just a meeting invite. I spent that whole weekend spiraling. Claire thought I was sick. I told her it was food poisoning, but really, it was panic. I could feel everything slipping: my career, my marriage, my sanity. When Monday came, I walked into that conference room like a man on trial. The HR rep, my boss, and Emily were already there. She looked calm, confident even. I noticed she wore the same perfume from that night in the office. The irony made me want to laugh. "Jason," the HR manager began, "we've received multiple reports regarding inappropriate communication and behavior with a colleague." I glanced at Emily. She kept her eyes on the table. "These," the manager continued, sliding a folder toward me, "are screenshots of messages between you and Ms. Harper. Some of them contain explicit language." My blood went cold. The screenshots were real, but they weren't mine. The texts had my number, my name, even my phrasing. But the timestamps were off. The dates didn't match. Some of the words, ones I'd never used, were in there. She had edited them, faked them, set me up. I looked at her, trying to find a flicker of guilt. There was none. "I don't know what this is," I said, my voice shaking. "Those messages are altered." Emily finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Jason, please don't make this harder. I just want to move on." And that's when I understood. This wasn't panic. It was precision. She'd orchestrated everything: the affair, the rumors, the fallout, all to climb the ladder. Ryan, the regional manager, had influence. I was disposable. The meeting ended with a suspension pending further investigation, which, in corporate speak, means you're done here. I walked out of that office feeling hollow. My coworkers' eyes followed me, some curious, some judgmental, none sympathetic. When I got home, Claire was waiting, arms crossed, eyes red. "They called me," she said. Her voice was quiet but lethal. "Someone from your office. They told me about her." I froze. "Who told you?" She shook her head. "Does it matter?" I tried to explain, to tell her it wasn't what it seemed, that Emily had manipulated everything, but Claire had already packed a bag. "You lied to me for months, Jason. I can't even look at you." And just like that, she was gone. In 1 week, I lost my wife, my job, my reputation. The funny thing about betrayal is it doesn't end when the person leaves. It lingers. It festers. It becomes part of you. For a while, I tried to move on, applied for new jobs, but the rumors followed. Emily had friends everywhere. Her version of the story spread like wildfire. I couldn't escape it, until one night, by sheer accident, I found her secret. I was scrolling through LinkedIn, looking for openings, when I saw a new post from Ryan, a photo of him and Emily celebrating a promotion. Couldn't have done it without my incredible partner. I almost kept scrolling, until I noticed something strange in the background of the photo. Ryan's office window reflected a second phone screen open to a messaging app. The conversation showed Emily's name at the top, and a message preview that read, "He actually believed you, lol. We're in the clear now." The timestamp, the same day as my HR hearing. My heart started pounding. I zoomed in, took a screenshot, and stared at it for a full minute. It wasn't much, but it was something. Proof that she wasn't the victim she claimed to be. That night, I didn't sleep. For the first time in months, I wasn't drowning in regret. I was thinking, planning. Because if Emily thought she'd buried me, she had no idea what I was about to dig up. It's strange how revenge doesn't feel like rage at first. It feels like focus. A quiet, icy calm that settles over you once you realize there's nothing left to lose. That night, after seeing that LinkedIn photo, I sat in front of my computer until sunrise. The glow of the monitor painted the room in a ghostly blue. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, but I didn't need to. I had purpose again. I knew I couldn't just walk into HR waving a screenshot of a reflection in someone's window. I needed more proof. Concrete, undeniable, digital proof that Emily had faked those messages and framed me. I started by going through my phone records. Every message I'd ever sent, every call I'd made. It took hours, but eventually, I found inconsistencies or timestamps that didn't match. Missing logs where the supposed text should have been. Then I remembered something. Months earlier, when Emily and I were still working late, she once bragged about her ex-boyfriend, a programmer, who had taught her a few tricks about editing message screenshots. At the time, I'd laughed it off. Now, it felt like a confession I'd been too blind to notice. So, I dug deeper. I pulled metadata from the files HR had shown me during my disciplinary meeting. I'd taken photos of them with my phone when no one was looking. I ran the images through a forensic analysis tool I found online. The results were damning. The screenshots had been edited, and the timestamps had been manually altered. There it was, the truth. I had the evidence, but no one to show it to. HR had already closed my case. Citing mutual resolution, Emily was now Ryan's golden girl, promoted, celebrated, and untouchable. So I needed another plan. I created a fake LinkedIn profile of Mark Daniels, a recruiter from a fictitious company. Polished photo, credible experience, even fake endorsements. I sent Emily a connection request. She accepted within an hour. Then I started chatting. At first, it was innocent, looking for marketing talent, impressed by your campaigns. She loved the attention. Within days, she was bragging about her achievements, her dedication, her creativity. She mentioned the scandal vaguely, an unfortunate situation with a former colleague who crossed the line. I played dumb. "Oh no," I typed. "That must have been tough. Glad you came out on top." She replied with a smile emoji. Some people bring it on themselves. That one line was all it took for the anger to return, not the hot, reckless kind, but cold and precise. I saved every message, every timestamp, every boast. Then, something unexpected happened. Ryan's name popped up in one of her chats as she mentioned problems at work. Curious, I looked him up. His posts had gone from daily motivational quotes to silence. His last update was over a month old. Rumor pages, anonymous employee forums, started hinting that Ryan was under investigation. Something about misusing company funds. And that's when it hit me. Emily wasn't just ambitious, she was opportunistic. She jumped ship again, this time throwing Ryan under the bus. The pattern was the same: get close, manipulate, destroy, move up. I decided to test my theory. Using Mark, I mentioned in a chat that my company was hiring for a senior position, one that reported directly to the regional manager of a rival firm. I described the job in glowing terms, even sent a fake posting with a corporate logo I designed myself. She took the bait immediately. Within minutes, she was asking for confidential discussions about potential salary and advancement. I pretended to hesitate, saying the role required full transparency and honesty about past professional incidents. Her response was perfect: panicked, defensive, and riddled with contradictions. "I've never had any issues at work," she wrote. "Everything that happened with that guy, it was handled privately. He was unstable. I tried to help him. That was it, the smoking gun." I cross-referenced her statement with the edited screenshots from the HR file. The language she used matched phrases from the fake messages, exactly the same tone, same word choices, even the same emoji. I thought it wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was forgery. Now I had what I needed. The only question was, what would I do with it? Part of me wanted to send everything to HR anonymously to expose her, get her fired, watch her life implode the way mine had. But another part, the darker part, wanted her to see me do it. To watch her realize that I was still standing, still breathing, and that her perfect world was about to crumble. So I waited. For 2 weeks, I collected everything: the screenshots, message logs, image forensics, timestamps. I built a digital file so detailed it looked like a prosecution folder. And then, I found my moment. Ryan was suddenly gone from the company's website on personal leave. Emily, however, had just been promoted again. They were planning a press announcement, complete with a new corporate video highlighting her as a rising leader. That's when I decided how this would end, not quietly, not legally, but publicly. I kept replaying the company's calendar in my head: the press announcement, the internal town hall, the smiling headshots, the ribbon-cutting video they'd posted to celebrate Emily's leadership. It was all schedule and optics. They loved a good narrative, the underdog who rose through merit and charm. They loved tidy endings. They didn't love messy truths. If I wanted her unmasked, I had to pick the moment when the light was already on her. When the company, the investors, the entire office was watching. I built something like a trap, but it didn't feel like that when I was assembling it. It felt like assembling the shards of my life into something that cut back. First, I prepared the dossier so meticulously that even the most skeptical person would have to look twice. I organized the forensic reports, the metadata proving the screenshots were edited, I compiled my chat logs with Mark, every incriminating message saved and timestamped. I pulled the LinkedIn reflection screenshot and enhanced it until the preview text was legible. I included the HR emails, the invitation to the formal review, and the photo of the folder they'd shown me with the doctored messages, the one I'd snapped on a dare when no one was paying attention. I printed everything. Not because I thought paper was more credible. Companies live and die in digital records now, but because paper felt permanent. I stuffed 3 thick envelopes, one for the board, one for the external PR firm attached to the company, and one for the internal communications director who managed town halls. To each I included a USB drive labeled innocuously, Employee Spotlight _ brand assets. On each drive sat a single file, a video titled Internal Review Confidential. I uploaded the same video to a private streaming link and scheduled it to go live the exact minute the CEO began his preamble at the town hall. Timing mattered. I counted breaths and rehearsed the exact cadence of the CEO's slow, reassuring voice, the same voice that always preceded good news. When the day came, I felt numb. Part of me wanted to vomit. Part of me wanted to laugh. I sat in my cheap apartment with a takeout container and lit a cigarette I didn't really want. The town hall started on the big screen. The room filled with people in their offices and people at home. Cameras panned to the executive team, to Ryan smirking in the back row, to Emily sitting in the front like a queen. The CEO talked about growth and synergy. The slides floated behind him with arrows and pie charts. Then he introduced rising leaders, and Emily's smiling face filled the screen. Applause and muted audio. The chat blowing up with congratulations. At that precise second, the link I'd scheduled triggered. My inbox erupted first. Then the internal message boards. A dozen, then 100, then thousands of eyes redirected toward the same place. Internal Review Confidential. The video started like this: a simple, clean, a narrator's voice, my voice, disguised, saying, "This is a compilation of evidence regarding Ms. Harper's professional conduct and behavior. All documents are authentic and verifiable." The screen cut between images, the doctored screenshots. The forensic report with highlighted differences. Our marked conversations. The LinkedIn reflection screenshot blown up until each letter was sharp. They showed the message where Emily had laughed about me believing her, the one you could barely see in Ryan's office window. They played the fragments where she bragged about manipulating HR into believing her story. They included the forensics that showed the timestamps had been manually altered, metadata badges, hex strings revealed, the ugly digital fingerprint of someone who'd been sloppy enough to leave traces. I watched the CEO's face change from practiced warmth to sharp, horrified concentration. Ryan's jaw went slack. Emily's hands clamped over her mouth. Somewhere, someone shouted into a muted microphone. And then I did the thing I told myself I would never do. I posted everything on my publicly accessible social profile under a throwaway name. I labeled it plainly, "How Company Rewarded Deceit." I tagged no one at first, but the link was there, and it was ferocious. The company's Slack exploded. HR issued a terse "We are aware" message. The PR team sent a message to all employees instructing them not to share external links. But the video had already been mirrored. Screenshots, GIFs, and short clips were everywhere. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, "Is this real? Are you okay?" "I don't believe this." Emily stood up then. Her voice trembled but carried. "This is false," she said, rallying quickly. "These are forged documents. I have been a dedicated employee, and this is harassment." She looked toward the CEO with wet eyes that read practiced sorrow. But I had prepared for that, too. I had included in the dossier not just her messages but records of how she'd accessed a contractor's shared drive where budget sheets lived. In one folder, I'd found line items that didn't add up, expenses coded to client entertainment that routed through a shell vendor. Money moved quietly. Ryan had been the facilitator, the man whose name had appeared in invoices and who'd signed off on quick vendor approvals. Or so it looked in the files that followed the conversation. The moment the CFO scanned the numbers, the line item discrepancies screamed. He excused himself and disappeared for what felt like an eternity. People started asking questions out loud now. Why wasn't this caught? Why did HR close the case? Who else knew? The chat filled with anger and disbelief. Journalists were already pinging PR contacts. A local business reporter texted me under a false name asking for confirmation of the footage. I sent it to her. She asked for more. I gave her the contact for the external PR firm and the board. There is a peculiar sound when something topples, not loud like glass breaking, but like a small avalanche of paper colliding against the floor. I felt it reverberate in the very core of the company. Ryan was escorted out of the building under the guise of temporary leave pending review, but it was too late for pretense. The promotion stopped mid-announcement. Emily's smile dissolved into raw panic as the CEO tried to gather his bearings, his words failing him for once. The board called an emergency meeting. HR reopened the case. The PR firm drafted a statement to the press and then, after reading the dossier, called their legal counsel. People who had once been indifferent now whispered about cover-ups and complicity. A handful of employees who'd been friendly with Emily began to look away. Those who had hated the rumor mill felt vindicated. Those who had believed me in private reached out with apology-laced messages. Some admitted they'd suspected something and had kept quiet. Others told me they'd suspected me of being the manipulative one, which stung more than I expected. And then, when the dust settled for a heartbeat, Emily did something I hadn't anticipated. She reached out to me privately on my throwaway account. I didn't respond. The adrenaline faded slowly and was immediately replaced by a heavy, complicated quiet. I had done what I set out to do: expose the fraud, turn the lights squarely on the person who'd taken my life and rearranged it. The company's myth machine sputtered and coughed and paused. For the first time since the HR folder had slid across the table, someone outside of me was making the difficult phone calls, but victory didn't feel like liberation. It felt porous. The hole she'd left in my marriage remained. Claire had not come back. Some things, I realized, weren't reclaimable with screenshots and exposes. You could force someone's actions into the daylight, but you couldn't make them take back the nights they'd been gone. Still, there was one undeniable thing: Emily's armor had been cracked. The office that once buzzed with her strategic laughter now buzzed with the exact opposite of suspicion. She was not yet defeated, but she was exposed. We had entered a war now. And in war, there are always prices to pay. The morning after the video went viral, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I'd shut off notifications, muted calls, even turned it face down on the kitchen counter, but it kept lighting up: old coworkers, reporters, anonymous numbers. The story had spread beyond the company walls overnight. Marketing executive exposed for falsifying HR evidence. One headline read. The comments were brutal. They always are. For a while, I just stood at the window, coffee cooling in my hand, watching the city wake up. I should have felt triumphant. I had done the impossible. I'd made the truth louder than the lie. But all I felt was tired, the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. By noon, the company released a statement, effective immediately. Emily Harper and Ryan Collins are no longer employed with the organization. They mentioned ethical violations and breach of data integrity. No one mentioned me by name, but everyone knew. Within hours, LinkedIn turned into a digital battlefield. Some defended her witch hunt, cancel culture. Others called me a hero. None of them knew the whole story. None of them knew how it had really started. To lonely people, bad choices, small lies that multiplied until they swallowed everything. That night, I got an email. The subject line read, "You won." It was from Emily. The message was short. "You think this makes you clean? You destroyed my career. I was just surviving. I hope it was worth it." I stared at those words for a long time. She'd never take responsibility, not for the affair, not for the framing, not for the fallout. To her, it had always been a game of survival. Maybe she wasn't wrong. The corporate world rewards the ruthless. I just happened to be the first one who hit back harder. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. 2 weeks later, a lawyer from the company reached out. They wanted a quiet settlement to avoid further reputational damage. They offered me compensation for wrongful termination if I agreed not to speak publicly again. I signed. I didn't need money. I needed closure. Claire heard about the scandal eventually. Small town, big internet. She called me out of the blue one evening, her voice steady but distant. "I saw the news," she said. "I didn't do it for revenge," I told her, though even I wasn't sure anymore. "I know," she replied softly, "but it won't fix what's broken, Jason." There was a pause, long enough for both of us to remember the life we'd buried. Then she hung up. That was the last time we spoke. A month passed. The company rebranded. No leadership, New slogans. Emily disappeared from social media. Ryan's profile went private. Sometimes, I searched their names late at night, half hoping to see some sign of them resurfacing, maybe to confirm they were still out there, living with the wreckage we'd both created. But mostly, I stopped looking backward. I found freelance work eventually. Remote, quiet, anonymous. No office politics. No late nights with anyone who smelled like temptation and danger. I started running again, something I hadn't done since before Claire and I were married. The rhythm of my breath against the pavement was the only sound that felt honest. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, I caught my reflection in a shop window. For the first time in years, I didn't see the man who'd been betrayed or the one who'd betrayed someone else. Just a man, a flawed, scarred, still here. I realized then that revenge had never been about winning. It was about reclaiming the truth, even if it came at a cost. And it always does. Emily lost her job. Ryan lost his career. I lost my marriage, my reputation, and parts of myself I'll never get back. But I gained something I didn't expect: a peace. Not forgiveness, exactly. Just quiet. And sometimes, quiet is enough.